first, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. This is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. I want to put this picture up there right now because if you know who that is, then you are going to be very excited about this segment that's coming up. And if you don't, you probably know someone who does, because there are Twin Peaks fans everywhere, especially in this area, I feel like. And again, I'm Greg Nibbler. We are live streaming here from the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom, as we do every weekday, starting around 1 p.m., going throughout the afternoon and covering a wide range of topics. But this one is something that is a film you can go see, a documentary here at the Hollywood Theater coming up next week. And we're going to be talking all about that right now with director Richard Green, who is joining us. And Richard, doing great. It's good to have you on here. And I will just say, personally, I have a lot of friends who are very excited about this segment to find out more about it, about the Log Lady, about Catherine. And but to start off, for anybody out there who maybe doesn't know, could you just tell us a little bit about who Catherine is and what this documentary is about?
I can, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. This is an amazing woman who had, like many amazing people, some amazing friends. People like David Lynch and Mark Frost and Robert Schenken and Lisa Loomer, some just luminaries in various fields of the art. Catherine Coulson grew up at Disneyland. Her father was the head of PR. He went to college in Pomona and then moved to San Francisco to study at San Francisco State, and there formed a theater company with a bunch of other really, really interesting, radical, revolutionary 1969 San Francisco theater. From there, she married Jack Nance, who later became Eraserhead, and moved down to Los Angeles. When she was in LA at AFI, they met David Lynch, who started his seminal work called Eraserhead. I don't know if everybody in your audience knows Eraserhead, but they know the picture of the guy with the really tall. And Catherine Coulson became David Lynch's right-hand man on Eraserhead. She learned how to pull focus as a first AC, worked with John Cassavetes on a couple of films, later went on to pull focus on Star Trek Wrath of Khan, supposedly the greatest Star Trek movie ever made. I think it's arguable. She had 4 separate kinds of lives. She was on camera as the Log Lady, internationally renowned, and for 25 years carried that log all over the world to events and festivals. She was in front of, behind the camera, as I said, pulling focus on Cassavetes movies, many, many projects, Star Trek. On stage, she moved up to Ashland, Oregon in the late 80s. Right at early 90s, excuse me, and became one of the primary actresses at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. 22 seasons there, over 80 roles in that period of time. And then in the community, she was she converted from Catholicism to Judaism, married a rabbi, and when they moved up to Ashland, Oregon, she became the Rebbitzin, which is the rabbi's wife that does all the community outreach and brings pies and takes care of sick people. But she had this incredibly broad life, including raising a very, very lovely daughter who right now is there lives in Portland and working with some really wonderful organizations to further forestry, conservation, and culture. So,
that's an extraordinary life. Yeah, all of those things, and for people who maybe just knew her from on screen as the Log Lady, that knowing all of that backstory of what she had. I will say one quick note, too. The log is actually on display at the World Forestry Center right now here in Portland, so just coincidentally.
Well, not only is it on display, but there's a stand-up Catherine and a stand-up Log Lady, and you can go and take a picture with them. And Catherine's actual glasses as the Log Lady are also there in Portland, which is pretty amazing.
Wow. I mean...
That's Catherine's daughter, Zoe.
Yeah, that's amazing. We may have to get out there for another segment following up after this.
Yeah, love it.
But how did you come about knowing about Catherine and wanting to make a documentary about this amazing life?
Yes. Well, I knew her when I was 18. I moved to San Francisco from Los Angeles, and I started a theater company. And it turned out that her theater company had ended a year and a half before, and everybody who was in that company was now in our company. So we did lots of productions in San Francisco. At 20, I decided that I needed to hitchhike around the world and be what a hippie does when you're 20 years old, right? Big adventure. And in coming down to Los Angeles to hang out, just see my folks before I went to Europe for a year, I ended up auditioning for the Mayfair Music Hall, which was a show here that was just opening. And one of Catherine's closest friends was also in the show. So I was introduced to Catherine. I had already met Jack because he'd come up to San Francisco and done a show with us. And they were all living, the two of them were living in a house on Beechwood Canyon in an apartment with David Lynch. They were starting to make Eraserhead. And I had no idea what this was about. I mean, David Lynch, he wore a snap brim fedora, wore a couple of ties, like Jimmy Stewart most of the time. So I thought they were making a wonderful life. Very different from the film that I actually saw.
I mean, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I got a phone call from Donna Dubain, our executive producer and one of Catherine's oldest friends in our film and also in that theater company, Circus, up in San Francisco, the day that Catherine died. She died in 2015. And what Donna said to me was that she got a call from another one of our friends, Timmy Neer, and that Catherine had died 4 days after playing her final role as the log lady, shot in her living room at her house remotely. And then the character was dying of the same disease that Catherine was dying of, and that she did pass 4 days later. And I just thought this was fascinating. Why? Why must, it's the show must go on story, but why must the show go on is what got in my head. Why was it so important to her to do this role one last time? And how the hell did they pull it off? Those were the questions, and the film is the answer.
Wow. I mean, yeah, the fact that it was that important to her to go through with that. And I mean, and finding out about all those other things in her life too. And as you mentioned, David Lynch, and he's, also recently passed, and a big part of this film as well. What was it like working with him, to talk about Catherine?
So I've had a really interesting relationship with David for most of my life. I met him that summer, when I was 20, and in this show, and just kept running into him intermittently over the years. The actual projects that we worked together, 22 or 3 years ago, we did a production called David Lynch Presents I Don't Know Jack. It was a documentary about Catherine's first husband, the star of Eraserhead, Jack Nance, who lived a pretty tragic life, even though he was an extraordinarily interesting and fun person to hang out with. So we did that, and then while we were getting ready to produce that, I got a call. It was kind of a weird situation. Catherine was living in Oregon. My studio was in Hollywood with Donna Dubain as our producer. And we got a call from Catherine late one night on my birthday looking for Donna. And I thought it was about the documentary we were going to make with David. So the next morning I come in and I say, hey, what did Catherine call about? And what I get told is David's office had called Catherine to try and find a guy that we all used to know who was really good with words and used to be a magician. So David knew me because when I was in Los Angeles at the Mayfair Music Hall, I had a drinks budget. They would give me like $50 worth of booze every night, and I don't drink. So who would come and drink my booze? Jack Nance, who was a big alcoholic, and David Lynch, who liked to drink as well. So now, when Jack died, and this is a year before we made this movie and before the call, I ran into David at Jack's memorial, and he asked me how I knew everybody. And Richard, I remember you from a long time ago, but how did you know Jack, right, was his question. So I told him this story about having gotten a role in a fair in San Francisco doing my improvised verse act, but they also wanted me to do another act. If I could do it, they'd pay me more. So I had been a magician as a kid, and I had designed a 15-foot gallows that I would hang myself on in front of the audience, right? And I was this evil, dark magician. It was a comic, kind of satirical act. So I told David about that. And then the last thing I did that day was I gave him a book on tape that later became my first feature called 7 Year Zigzag, which is entirely in narrated rhyme over original swing music. So now, a year and a half later, somebody called looking for a guy who was really good with words and used to be a magician. Nobody could figure it out in the studio. And I went, well, could it be me? After a while, I thought, no. And then they said, yes. And I went, no. 5 minutes later, Donna called Catherine in Oregon. Catherine called David in Hollywood. 20 minutes later, David called me and offered me the role in Mulholland Drive. I don't know if you're familiar with that film, but there's a wonderful sequence called the Club Silencio sequence where Naomi Watts and Laura Elena Herring go up into the balcony and a magician comes out and goes, "No, I, Banda." It's about a 4-minute scene. And that was the work that I got from David for that. And it was the most intimate performance I ever gave in my life. It was a big, broad, on a big stage with swing music and and a dark, evil magician. But performing for David and having him come on stage afterward and look me in the eye, I never felt more understood or more perceived as a performer or even as a person. So 20 years later, when I went to interview David about Catherine for this feature, that's what I got back. That open, intimate honesty amongst friends who trust each other and who trust their expression to each other. It was the greatest interview I'd ever conducted. And just so much fun.
I mean, even just the clips that I've seen, in the trailer and looking through it, I mean, you can tell that honesty is there, and and how much he cares too about. Oh,
he loves her deeply, deeply.
And that's what people are going to get to see. And I really appreciate you being able to talk about this with me too. For everybody out there, I want to let them know about when and how they can go see the documentary, which is going to be at Hollywood Theater, and and maybe what you would like them to take away from it at the end.
I've seen it now about 12, 15 times, maybe more than that, with an audience. And I am constantly just blown away by what the audience comes away with. It's, I can't say it's a surprise because, when you make a film, I mean, this is going to get a little minutia, but when you make a film, you're dealing with 24 different pictures every second, right? So in 1 second of film, there are 24 separate pictures. And each of those pictures is a decision. If I want to move between one shot and another shot, I'm shaving frames. But it's not one decision. It's a decision of picture, sound effects, music, ambience. So there are hundreds of thousands of decisions made in every picture. And you hope, you pray when you make a choice that it's going to be an effective choice, that the audience is going to laugh, or they're going to cry, or they'll have an insight. You hope. Seeing this movie with this many audience members, it's shocking to me how much they got, how much is actually, jokes that I forgot that I had put in, people are laughing at. And the key takeaway for me from all of it, and what's very interesting is it's really young and really old audiences. We're talking about people in their 70s and their 80s and older, and we're talking to a lot of people in their 15, 20, 25, young people. They're getting kind of the same thing, this reaffirmation of why every moment of our lives can be valuable if we allow it to be, if we are present in our lives, and that the efforts we make for our friends can come back to us. It's all about, ultimately it's about love. And Catherine loved life and dug in. Wasn't an easy life. She had a bunch of tragedies happen to her and difficulties that she had to overcome. But I think the reason that she motivated so many people to help her at the end was how much she had given out all through her life. And more importantly, how much she appreciated life and people.
Wow. Well, if anybody can take anything away remotely close to that, that's an incredible accomplishment. And telling her story. Right. Well, Richard, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time in talking about this. And everyone can go see this, obviously, at the Hollywood Theater, as I mentioned, and find out more about Catherine.
And they can check out our website, iknowcatherine.com, for other screenings. There'll probably be more in the Portland area. And then we will do a digital streaming release of this sometime in the near future. I don't want to give a date. Are you going to join us in Hollywood? Are you going to join us at the Hollywood Theater?
I would like to do that. Yep, absolutely.
I would look forward to meeting you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, very much so. So I'll talk to you here shortly then for the screening. And for everybody watching, and thank you, Richard, I'm going to just take us here into our next segment, or just go to a break. So for everybody watching, this is Fox 12 Now. We're live streaming here. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a little bit. Thanks for joining us.